Hey everybody, how you doing? Happy Labor Day. Today what we're going to talk about is I had a discussion with some individuals yesterday in the boot camp, and we were talking about various things pertaining to ACLs, filtering, and things like that. And what I want to talk about today is the concept of a VACL, a VLAN ACL. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into this here. And let me see if I can share one of my screens. Okay, there we go. All right. So basically, when we're thinking about ACLs, we're talking about filtering traffic, at the packet level. And when we're talking about VLAN ACLs, we're looking to do the same thing, but we're actually going to be targeting specific VLANs, not necessarily a broad network of things, but specific VLANs. So here you got the little, I'm gonna use this here, little simple topology, okay? And what we're looking at here is we got 4 hosts, which are my ISR routers. We have a layer 3 switch, which have my VLANs on it. And we have a 5th router called up at the very top J0, all right? And we have a network that we're using. It's a 15.00 network. And what I did was I just used VLSM to break it in half. And this is what gave me 2/25 networks. Okay. And the scenario here is that you have an entity that resides and operates on this network. And let's say, for example, we got a brand new entity coming in to also operate on this network, but we want to keep them segmented. Okay. And we understand, and you learn this, and depending on if you've been around for a while, you learned this way back in the CSENT days. Okay. That you have your layer 2 segmentation, you have layer 3, you can segment in different ways. Okay. But let's just take, for example, and let me actually do this. So let's just say we break that link right there. Okay. So now what we're looking at is we're looking at basically this here topology that sits right there. Okay. And so we have the host and we have the switch and we have the various hosts connected to their various VLANs. Okay. And just for giggles, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look and we're going to confirm here. So this here is our layer 3 switch that we're talking about, that we have in question. And what you will see is that I have entity 2 that have ports 33 and 34 assigned to them. And you also will see entity 5, which has ports 17 and ports 18 assigned to them. Now, what we're looking at is VLAN 2 is going to be assigned to J4 and J3, and we can actually confirm that. And let me take this over to my other screen. So let's go here. And what we will see is that J4 and J3 you wake that up. Okay. So like I said before, VLAN 2 is operating on ports 33 and port 34. And VLAN number 5, which I showed earlier, will be operating on ports, did I say 17 and 18? Okay. 17 and 18. That's VLAN 5. Okay. So now let me bring all this over into the same screen here. All right. So now when we think about this, we know that hosts on the same network can communicate with each other. Okay. And just like we know, it's all in the same broadcast domain. If any of this sounds alien, you're just going to have to refresh back up on your earlier CCNA knowledge base. Okay. So once we start separating hosts in different VLANs, we get the layer 2 segmentation. Okay. So with this everyday knowledge, nothing fancy here, nothing should be surprising to anybody at this level. Okay. So we can look at this here diagram and we can see that J4 and J3, which operate on 15, on the lower half of that 15 network, okay, IP addresses .4 and .3, they should be able to communicate with one another. So we'll go up here and we'll do a ping to 15.0.0.4, which would be the other one. And we can see that goes through. All right. Now, like I said, hosts on different VLANs, they're not going to communicate because the broadcast stops, okay, at the layer 2 boundary of the VLAN, okay, which is why you cannot hop from VLAN 2 VLAN 5 under normal conditions. So to have J3 here at .3 on this here topology, try to talk to J2 or J1 at the .202 or .201 address, theoretically, we know that's not going to happen. And as you see here, that is not going through. Okay. Now, just so that everybody is aware, full disclosure, routing has been turned off on my boxes. Okay. So this is just basically, these routers have been made into dumb boxes with IP addresses, for the lack of a better term. Okay. So basically the router isn't smart enough to traverse across the layer 2 boundaries. Okay. And I'll even take it to my layer 3 switch here. All right. So like I said, we know we got VLAN 2 that's holding entity 2, and we got VLAN number 5. Okay. Same thing here. I have turned routing off. Okay. Routing is not, so these are dumb boxes right now. So what you see is normal, typical behavior when you have hosts on various VLANs. Now, I'm going to bring this forward. Okay. And this again is nothing more than a review, okay, at the CCNA level, route switch CCNA level. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually enable this link that you see between the switch and J0. Okay. Now, what you see up here in this here picture is that this link between J0 and the switch is a trunk. This is why I have the .1Q sitting up here for VLAN 2 and VLAN 5 at their respective IP addresses. Okay, 126 for the lower half of the /25 and 254 for the upper half of that /255. Okay, so let's take a look at it like this. That link in question show run interface F2027. Okay, now what you will see is that this is a trunk. Okay, .1Q, and we're allowing VLANs 1, 2, and 5. All right, and we are currently in a shutdown state. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically open that link back up, because here's what's happening. Once we introduce that layer 3 device, in this case, it's going to be J0. All right. Once we introduce, and what I'll do here, wrong one, wrong command. Okay, let me let that finish through. I should have actually put the no domain lookup, but that's not, I'm gonna let that run this course. But like I said, once you introduce that layer 2 device into, let me back that up. Once you introduce that layer 3 device, in this case J0, into this here layer 2 environment, the situation with the VLAN separation, the VLAN segmentation, okay, that will be overcome. And what I'm getting at is everybody should be familiar with router on the stick at this point. So let me go back down here to, and I'm just going to simply do a quick telnet into J0, and we'll go through the 126 address. And that is not working because I have that link shut down. So let's do this. F2027. We're going to do a no shut. So we're going to open that up. So basically, we're going to cut that off. We're going to open that up and allow that to happen. Okay, interface is now up. Now let's go ahead and try to telnet to it. Okay, what's happening? Any day now. Any day. Here we go. Okay, so now we're in here on the J0 router. All right, and what you will see, okay, you'll see that we have the .2 and the .5 encapsulation going on, the sub interfaces. Okay, and this is where we're going to actually traverse the two VLANs and allow the host to talk to one another. Okay, so now that you see that, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this and go back to J1. All right, now what you saw earlier, where we use the example here, J3. J3 could not talk to J3 was actually able to talk to J4 because they was in the same VLAN. Now, where we had the problem was trying to talk to a host, which was the .202, which was in VLAN number 5. That wasn't going to happen. So now, because we introduced router on a stick, we're going to actually be able to traverse that. So the expected expectation here for this ping for VLAN and enter VLAN, okay, we expect that to go through. Now with the router being involved to traverse the VLANs, the 202, which wasn't going through before, is now going through now. Okay, so we understand that that's the expected behavior of hosts on different VLANs at layer 2 not being able to talk to one another, but as soon as you introduce that layer 3 device, in this case, a router on a stick, we know that we can now traverse that. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to actually introduce the concept of a VLAN ACL, a VLAN ACL. And what I'm going to do with this, let me bring this back over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let me go ahead and clear some of this stuff out of the way. All right, so the thing about a VLAN ACL, or I like to call it a Vacl, is we are targeting a specific VLAN. So here's the scenario. Like I said, we have entity 2 and entity 5. Entity 5 moves into, let's say, an existing location, and they're going to share the same network, but they must maintain their segmentation. Okay, so what I mean by that, entity 5 should not be able to access devices on entity 2's network. Okay, resources, devices, anything, they should remain totally separate. Okay, now to do this by using a Vacl, at this point in the game, you should already be familiar with the topic of route maps. Okay, because when I put this together, it's going to ring a bell and it's going to look exactly like the structure of a route map. Okay, so what we're trying to accomplish, VLAN 2, which is the 15000 network, okay, its traffic is going to be filtered to prevent anything from VLAN 5, the 1500128 network, from being able to connect to it. Okay, so, and we will apply this filter in VLAN 2, and there is actually a madness, as opposed to, there's a madness to understanding where and why you apply this VLAN ACL. Okay, so you have to understand how your traffic flows within your topology. Okay, so let's start this off. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create what's known as a VLAN access map. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go COMT, and we're going to go VLAN access map, and we're going to give it a name. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name of Pitbull. Okay, Pitbull, and sequence 10. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to match this to a ACL that we're going to create. All right, ACL1 standard access list. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create an action. So you can see how this structure is shaping up in the same lines as a route map. And what we're going to do is we're going to have an action drop. And can we log it? No. Yeah, so we're just going to do an action. We're going to drop that traffic. Okay, that's our first statement in there. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create because just like with route maps, you can have an issue if you create a route map and you target specific traffic that you want an action to take place on. But if you do not put a sequence in there that will fit for all the other traffic outside of what you're trying to target, it's going to is going to run into a snag, and that snag is known as the implicit deny. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create the VLAN access map sequence Pitbull. Got to make sure you got that spelling right. Got to be consistent. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to match this to another ACL. We'll call that access list number 2. And what we're going to do here is we want this action to forward. Okay, we want that action to forward. All right, so let's go ahead and let's create these ACLs. So what we want to do first things first, we want to filter. Okay, so we standing in the standpoint, we're looking at the standpoint of we're over here in J3, J4, or whatever is over here in this here particular network on VLAN 2. We're looking at the standpoint of filtering anything coming from the VLAN 5 area. Okay, so let's think about that. We're over here in the 15.0.0.0 network, and we want to pretty much filter, block anything coming from that 15.0.0.128 network. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to create access lists number 1. All right, and let me set this up so we can give you a better visual. So we want to do show VLAN access map. Okay, so here we go. So VLAN access map. We have a match clause, right? So we want to match addresses that's in what we're going to call access list number 1. All right, and we want to drop. We want to drop that traffic. So like I was explaining earlier, our goal, traffic here on VLAN 2, we want to block out the traffic from reaching us over here in VLAN 5, that .128 network. So let's create that access list. So we're going to go access list number 1. Okay, now here's where it gets funny. We're going to permit, we're going to make a permit statement, and actually in this case it can be a permit or a deny. It won't matter, because what's going to happen is the action that's stated within the access map itself is going to override the permit or the deny in the access list. So just take that in. The action that is stated in the access map, whether it be to drop or to forward, is going to override what the access list permit or deny that's annotated there. It's going to override it. So all it's going to focus on is what network are we really looking at. That's what it's going to look at. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to go ahead and say permit. Okay, we're going to go 15.128. All right, and a wildcard, anything in that network. Okay, so our first access map statement is basically saying that we are going to drop traffic in the access map. Okay, and we're going to drop that traffic, and we're going to match the address in access list number 1, which is the 15.0.0.128 network. So here's a topology again, so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, J4, J3 are going to be protected from J1 and J2. All right, so let's, like I said earlier, We also have to think in mind of how route maps are structured. So remember that we have to, hey baby, how you doing? Okay, let daddy finish up, all right? So we also have to remember that we actually have to make a statement in reference to everything else, or if not, we're going to fall victim to the implicit deny at the end of the statement. Okay, so let's do this. Now we need to address the access map sequence 20, where we're going to match on some IP, okay, an access list that we're going to create, and we're going to forward that traffic. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to access lists, create access list number 2. We're going to permit, and what are we going to permit? We're going to permit everything that's within the 1500 network to continue to talk to itself, because those are the resources that we need to access if we reside in VLAN number 2. So we're going to go 15.0.0.2, okay, everything. So we're going to put that on the wildcard of 127, okay, and that's it. So let's do a show access list and see what we got written in here. And you can see access list number 1, all right, for that upper end of that network starting from .128. And we got access list number 2, that lower half starting from the .0. All right, now we need to apply this Pitbull, okay? We need to put this Pitbull in a specific yard. And whose yard you put it in actually has a lot of impact on how your traffic flows. And I'll try to demonstrate that a little later on. But like I said, it goes back to understanding what it is that you are trying to do within your given network. So, like I said, we're going to go ahead and put Pitbull in VLAN number 2. All right, so let's do this. We're going to go CompT, VLAN filter, Pitbull, VLAN list 2. Okay, so what that does is that tells the switch, and we can verify this, show VLAN filter. And what you can see is we have put the Pitbull on VLAN 2. We have put the Pitbull in the yard of VLAN 2. Okay. Now, let's actually take a look, and what we'll do is I'm gonna go ahead and put this all over here again in the other screen, and we will try to see if I can share this without it really being too cluttered up. So let me do this. We're going to let's do a show access list. All right, so we got that. Let's do a show VLAN access map. We got that. And let's just show a VLAN filter. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put this information onto a notepad. That way I can refer back to it when needed. So let me do this. These are, let me copy all this down to here. Put this here. Let me get rid of this here CLI window. And this here is what we're going to actually talk about here. Okay. All right, so let's actually put this into practice so that we can actually talk through the expected behavior. All right, So we're going to start off here with VLAN number 2. All right, J3 and J4. Now, this here should not have been disturbed as far as the traffic that we are allowing to talk to one another with. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go to J4. And let's do this. Let us talk through this first. All right. So if we're here at J4 at .4, we want to talk to J3 within our own VLAN. So as we talk through this, look at this. So J4 hits the switch, okay? And then it comes back to the .3, which is J3. Now let's look at this from a access map standpoint. J4 sends this packet to the switch. Now we got Pitbull in VLAN number 2. So Pitbull says, okay, I need to match first. I need to match an IP on access list number 1. All right, so when we go up to access list number 1, we are looking at this here network, 15.0.0.128. Okay, so we know that this is coming from 00.4, but we don't have anything coming from the 128 network. Okay, we know this is coming from the 0 network. Okay, so Pitbull says, I can't match on that one. So let's go to the next sequence. Pitbull sequence line 20, match IP from access list number 2. Okay, so it goes to access list number 2, and it looks at it and says, all right, so do I have a match from the 15.0.0 network? And actually, J4 is coming from the 15.0.0 network, .4. And what does the Pitbull do? The Pitbull pretty much wags its tail and it takes action. And in this case, the action is to forward to J3. So let's do this. So we're going to ping 15.0.3, and the expected action is for it to forward it and let it go through. And there we go. Okay, those pings go through easy peasy. All right, now let's do this. This same Pitbull, okay, is in the yard. So let's just say we take traffic from J4 and we want to send it to, let's say, J2 here at .202. All right, now packet goes out from J4. It hits the Pitbull in the VLAN 2 yard. Okay, that Pitbull says, all right, VLAN access map sequence 10. Let's match the IP from the access list number 1. And what it's looking for is looking for a packet that is within this network. So we know that we got something that's destined to .202. All right, which means we are actually dealing with a packet that is destined for something within the 128 network. And that packet is destined for .202. So here we actually have a hit. Pitbull is now, he's not wagging his tail now. Okay. His little itty bitty ears are straight up in the air and he's growling. All right. So what he does in that sequence 10, he has matched an IP and access list number 1. And what he's going to do is he's going to drop that traffic. He's not going to allow that traffic to go through. So when we look at the actual ping itself to 202, okay, and I will actually confirm with you so that everybody can see. This here is the router that actually has the .202 address on it. Okay. So you can see that's in an up state. So what we're going to do is, like I said, so we know he's growling. So let's go ahead and do that ping on there. And it's doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. So that there tells you that VLAN 2, which has the Pitbull in it, is doing what it's supposed to do. It's preventing any traffic from VLAN 2 to traverse over to VLAN 5. Okay. Now, remember, we have a layer 3 device involved here, which is J0. So under any normal circumstances, those two gateways, okay, the encapsulation, the .1Q for VLAN 2 and 5 would be working. But we have this here Pitbull Vacl in place that's actually hindering that packet from traversing from VLAN 2 to VLAN 5. Okay. Now, same thing. Let's go over here to one of the ones in VLAN 5. All right. So we'll pick VLAN 2, which is a 202 address. All right. And let us ping 15.0.4. Okay. We can go to 4. And what'll happen is Pitbull, who's over in VLAN 2, will see this traffic coming from the 128 network, and more specifically, the 2.2 address over in the 128 network. Okay. VLAN 5 will send it up to J0. J0 says, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know exactly where this is at. And we'll send it back down to VLAN 2. Now, when it comes down to VLAN 2, Pitbull is sitting in the yard waiting for it. Okay. So what's going to happen is Pitbull is going to look at the access map sequence 10, and it's going to actually match IP address in the access list, number 1. And when it does that, it's going to say, do I got anything from that 128 network? And what is it going to say? It's going to say, yep, I sure do. And Pitbull is going to start growling. All right. And the action it's going to take, because it has that hit on that first sequence, it's going to drop. So the expected outcome for J2 to try to ping J4 is going to be a denial. Okay. That traffic is not coming through. Now, likewise, all right, if J2 wants to talk to a resource over here at J1, let's say .201, all right, over here in VLAN 5, that should go through nice and easy. Why? Because the Pitbull is over in VLAN 2. So when we do that, we're going to ping 201, which is the other resource in VLAN 5, and that goes through with no problem. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, you have to understand how your traffic is flowing, because if you apply the Pitbull in the wrong place, you're going to have an undesired outcome. So let's do this. Let us do this. I am going to make a quick change. Let's switch this over to another screen. We are going to actually change where we put the Pitbull at. So we're going to take Pitbull out of number 2 and put it in number 5. So let us do this. I'm going to take it out of 2. I'm going to put it in 5. Okay. So let's confirm this. Now that's the only thing that we're changing is the VLAN filter on where we're applying it. So we went from number 2 And now we're going to apply it to VLAN 5. Now, let's go back to the other screen where we can actually walk through what's actually going to take place real time. Okay, we're back here at this other screen. So let's take a look. Let me clear these here screens out so we already know which routers, all that good stuff. Okay, good deal, good deal. All right, so now let's go back and walk through the same process again. Now we got J4 up here in the pink. All right, now J4 talking to a resource within the same VLAN, in this case J3. All right, what's the expected outcome we should get there? That shouldn't be an issue. All right, so let's do this. So we done already took Pitbull out of its yard. Okay, so if I get that typing right, so a ping from J4 to J3, looking at this here topology, that shouldn't be no issue because we don't have the VLAN filter, the Vacl, in that VLAN no more. So the expected outcome is that should ping through nice and easy. And there we go. All right. Now we have the VLAN now over here in number 5. Okay. So Pitbull's over here in VLAN in the yard of VLAN 5. So let's walk through this again. So J4, let's say J4 has traffic for or wants to attempt traffic with .202 over here in VLAN 5. So J4 is going to send this packet to number 2. Number 2 is going to send it up to J0. All right, the router is going to resolve the different VLANs. Okay, it recognizes it at the layer 3 level. And it says, yeah, I know exactly where this is. This is over in VLAN 5. So let me send it back down here through my trunk and go to VLAN 5. Now it gets to VLAN 5, and what is it going to do? The Pitbull is sitting there. So the Pitbull is going to go through its access map sequences, and it's going to say, all right, let me try to match IP and address 1. And it's going to say, do I see anything here in access and this here 128 network? It's going to say, no, I don't see anything. So it's going to try to go to the next one. All right. It's going to say access list number 2. And it's going to say, do I see anything in here coming from 00? And it's going to say, yeah, I do. I sure do. So what is it going to do? It's actually going to allow, it should allow that. But here's where the problem comes. So it's going to, let me put it to you this way. Let me back that up. It will come through on the ingress, but it's going to have problems on the egress. Okay, so let's do this. 202, and you see that it doesn't allow it. So here's where the problem is. Here's where the problem is. When it comes through the first time, it sees that it falls into this situation here. All right, access list number 2, and it allows that to go through. But here's the problem. It's the reply echo. Okay, so when it comes back from J2 to go back and respond to J4, that's where it gets hung up at. Okay, so in essence, there's a little unnecessary traffic that actually happens unnecessarily, because in this case, it's filtered on the way back out as opposed to it coming in. Okay, so even though it still gives us the desired effect that it wants, there's some unnecessary actions that's happening that should have been caught earlier. Now let's take a look at this. We're in VLAN 5, and we want to access resources within VLAN 5, and you see we're going to go from J2 over to J1 in the same VLAN. Now, Mind you, remember I said earlier, where you apply Pitbull can make a huge impact on your the way your traffic is handled. So we're in the same VLAN. So typically we should be good to go because we've shown that on a couple attempts over here in number and VLAN 2. But let's walk through this. So VLAN 2 wants to talk to and initiate traffic with VLAN 4. So we can see, we saw that up here where that's going to be denied. Okay, we saw that. But what if VLAN 2 wants to talk to VLAN 1 within its same VLAN? So let's walk through that. So we're going to do a ping to 15.0.0.201. So let's walk through that. VLAN 2 sends out a ping to a resource in the same VLAN. In this case, it's going to be J1 at the address 201. So we have the Pitbull in VLAN 5 yard. So what it's going to do is it's going to refer to its access map. It's going to say, can I match an address in access list 1? And it's going to say, okay, so access list 1, I'm looking for anything within that 15.0.0.128 network. Do I have a match? And the Pitbull is going to look and realize that it is looking at its own owner, okay? It's looking at an address coming from out of its VLAN that matches that 128 network. And what is it going to do? It's going to take action. It's going to drop it. Okay. So it's going to look at its own host and it's going to be aggressive towards it. It's going to show extreme prejudice towards its own host. So let's ping this here. And when it sees this packet coming from 202, which is in its 128 network, it's going to do what is told to do. It's going to drop it. So when we go to ping, because we got the Pitbull in the wrong yard, you see we're creating problems for ourselves over in VLAN 5. Okay, we're creating problems for ourselves. So what does this mean? This means that pretty much Pitbull is pretty much denying all traffic, because even when, like I showed you earlier, let's say we go to J4, all right, we're going to get denied here as well. Why? Because when Pitbull looks at access list 1 and it's told to drop anything coming from access list number 1, okay, nothing's getting over there. Nothing's getting over to the other side because we've applied this Vacl into the wrong VLAN. So you have to understand how your traffic flows and where to apply, which VLAN you want to apply this specific VLAN ACL. All right. So let's go back over to the switch. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove this VLAN filter. We're going to remove Pitbull out of yard number 5, VLAN number 5, and we're going to put it in the yard of VLAN number 2. So let's just do this. Let's see. Yeah. So we're going to negate that filter command, and we're going to put number 2 back in there. Okay. So I'm going to confirm. And you can see that now we're back in number 2 as opposed to when we were in number 5. Now, let's go back to the other set of screens, to the other screen. And what we will see is that the traffic over in number 4 should still be denied. Okay, so we still got our segmentation there. But now, because we got the Pitbull in the proper yard, what we shouldn't see is we shouldn't see a denial of our own resources. Okay, so I should be able to ping 201 with no problems. Okay, and that is how you actually apply. All right, take care. Okay, all right. So that is how you should apply your VLAN ACL. You have to understand how your traffic flows and how your access lists are set up in their sequences. Okay, like I said, the structure of a VLAN ACL is nothing different than a route map. So if you understand a route map, then you can understand VLAN access maps and how they're read and how they're structured. So until next time, take care.